Hi everybody, welcome to Ecodriver. My name is Helmut. Today we do our real-life consumption test with the Volvo XC40 T2. That's the 3-cylinder 1.5-liter petrol engine with 95 kilowatts, 129 horsepower. Unladen weight is 1,580 kilograms, 3,476 pounds. Consumption according to WLTP is between 7.3 and 7.9 liters per 100 kilometers, 30 to 32 mpg US, 36 to 39 mpg UK. This car is equipped with the 8-speed torque converter automatic gearbox from Aisin. This is a fairly straightforward classic car, so no hybrid of any sorts or some other gimmicks. And we try to find out what fuel economy we can get out of this car by an economical but still speedy driving style. Of course, I try to stay within or about the speed limits and also apply the principles of common sense. Going 30 kilometers an hour here is because we are in a 30 kph zone. If you have seen my videos before, you'll know the route. If you are new to this channel, then I show you here where we are going. We start where the green arrow is, located on the edge of town. First we go up a hill to cover about 360 meters, 1100 feet of altitude, followed by some rolling hills, a descent which brings us back to starting level, 19 kilometers of open road through some villages and small towns, 17 kilometers of motorway, and at the end 18 kilometers of city traffic. At the end of each of those sections we check the overall and sectoral consumption, and at the end we analyze the whole trip. I hope you enjoy this trip despite the bad weather, at least there is no rain, and I'll talk to you later. You may have noticed that on the way up I was using the M mode on the gearbox a lot. This is to keep the revs down and by that reduce consumption, and also to increase the load on the engine by pressing the accelerator pedal almost fully to the floor, which improves the efficiency of the burning process. We are now coming to the end of the ascent, and when we turn left here we see 11.4 liters per 100 kilometers on the board computer. We now come to the hilly section. Here I apply a method which I call playing with the road. This means I try to use the change of gradient to my advantage. If I go into a hill, I try to build up some momentum before and on the way up, and those hills are not very long, I slowly reduce speed and therefore reduce the amount of energy needed. When the hill flattens or even turns into a descent, I then re-accelerate, and this is a very efficient way of driving. Imagine, just like a roller coaster. You see here, it's slightly uphill, we have 47 kilometers per hour. I'm not accelerating, only now when it goes down we increase the speed by literally doing nothing. Gravity helps us to build up speed. Here at the sign we have 8.8 liters per 100 kilometers. We now approach the descent. On the way down I always try to make the best possible use of the injection cutoff, which is the most efficient way of driving an ICE. As long as the engine is connected to the wheels and is kept above idling revs, there is no fuel injected. There are two flat sections where I try to pass them without the active use of the gas pedal. I try to build momentum before, of course within the speed limits, and let the car go over it just with the momentum. Here we also have a flat section. In a car with a manual gearbox, I would let the car coast. That means decouple the drivetrain from the wheels to make best use of the momentum. However, with automatic gearboxes, I strongly recommend not to use neutral, as this might damage the gearbox when reinserting the gears, when you go back to D. At the end of the descent, we see here 6.2 liters per 100 kilometers. Here normally we already get a good idea of where we will end up with the consumption at the end. And remember, we had the uphill, hills and downhill and are already 15% better than the official WLTP consumption. We are coming to the end of the open road section, and we see here at the sign 5.5 liters per 100 kilometers. You might have seen that I also used the M mode rather a lot in order to try to keep the RPMs down. For my taste, the engine was revving a bit too high, despite this engine being very smooth and also very powerful at lower RPMs. Modern gearboxes normally adapt their shift pattern to the driving style of the driver. So if you press the accelerator hard, it learns that you want to accelerate faster and therefore generally shifts later at higher RPMs and vice versa. However, this adaptation normally takes some time, and I only drive this car now for around 42 kilometers. The same gearbox in my private Volvo shifts much sooner, as the gearbox has learned that this is what I want. Talking about low revs, you might hear some old mechanics' tales that it's bad for the engine and that they need to be revved up. A good indicator of what is bad for the engine is the shifting point of the automatic gearbox. If you are in M and the gearbox allows you to reduce the RPMs by shifting into the next gear, then the engine is fine with it. The main aim of the engineers is to protect the engine, as this is the single most expensive part in a car. If it were bad for the engine, they wouldn't allow it to go that low. And as you see on this strip, we can go down to 1100–1200 RPMs. On the motorway, as we are not in Germany, we have some sensible speed limits. In the case of this section here, it's 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles per hour. We are coming to the end of the motorway, and we see here 5.5 liters per 100 kilometers. We are now around 2 liters per 100 kilometers below the official WLTP. Volvo is known for being rather realistic with their consumption figures. All other Volvos I've tested were easily driven with far less fuel than they claim. Let's not forget, we have here a 1.5 liter 3-cylinder engine. That means the cylinders are 0.5 liters, which is a sensible volume and definitely not one of those super downsized small engines which normally use more fuel and won't last as long as the bigger ones. Also, the gearbox from Aisin is very smooth and really a pleasure to drive. We are coming to the end of the consumption test with the Volvo XC40 T2, and when we park the car in here we see 5.7 liters per 100 kilometers. That's really nothing to complain about. And now the details. Well, let's have a look at the details for the trip on the Ecodriver loop with the Volvo XC40 T2. We see here the sectoral consumptions. 11.4 on the uphill, 5.8 on the hills, 0.4 of liter per 100 kilometers on the descent, 4.7 on open road, 5.5 on the motorway, with the caveat that it's only 100 kilometers an hour speed limit, and 6.3 liters per 100 kilometers in city traffic. Overall, this leads to 5.7 liters per 100 kilometers, and this compared to the WLTP of 7.3 to 7.9. I think that shows that firstly, Volvo is very realistic with the numbers they give on the official consumption, and secondly, that bigger engines, and as I said, it's half a liter per cylinder, that this gives you as a driver the chance to get even more efficiency out of the engine as you get enough torque at lower revs, and therefore you can reduce the consumption even further. And the Volvo is a no-frills car. There's no mild hybridization or any sorts of other gimmicks. It's just a solidly built, very good classic car. And I mean this in a positive way. What it does perfectly well. And the 3-cylinder engine, I think I said it in the video, The 3-cylinder engine is very smooth. I think this is the best 3-cylinder engine I've had so far, and I was a bit skeptical at the beginning or before the test, but afterwards I have to say you barely notice any difference to a 4-cylinder, and it's a really good, solid car. If you're generally interested in what I'm doing, then feel free to subscribe this channel, and if you hit the notification bell, you won't miss any new video. That's it for the Volvo XC40. Thanks for watching, take care, and see you next time.